Hello again and welcome back to our course on PowerPoint 2013. In this section we're going to look at sharing and Skydrive. And first of all I want to explain to you what I mean by sharing. Once you start to collaborate with other people on a presentation, then you need a way of accessing that presentation. Now, so far we've spoken in terms of passing the presentation from one person to another. So I could, for instance, work on a presentation, get it started, put it on a memory stick, give it to somebody else, let them make comments, let them make their own changes and so on. And in that way we can pass the presentation around until we've finished working on it. But in many situations this is neither a very efficient way of working nor a very helpful way of working. It's a much better option to have the presentation in a place where we can all see it and we can all work on it. And in that situation we're really saying that we have shared access to a presentation and that we're able to literally share the presentation. Now, in many ways there are similar arguments when you're talking about people being able to view a presentation. You can set up your presentation to be visible on the web, perhaps from your own website, and in that sense the presentation is shared in that other people can watch the presentation, possibly even have the ability to navigate their way through it independently of you, or to have it auto play so that they can just sit and watch it. But what we're talking about in this section is really a step beyond that. It's not the ability for somebody just to watch the presentation. We're talking about the ability for somebody to change the presentation, or at least potentially change the presentation. Now, if you publish a presentation on a website for the general public to see, the last thing you want is for them to be able to go in and delete a few slides or change a few of the words. So in the sense of being able to watch a presentation, that's one thing. What we're talking about here is the next step beyond that, which is the ability to change a presentation, or as I say, potentially change a presentation. Now, traditionally when people have wanted to have shared access to a presentation, or in fact to many other types of Office document, the approach they've used is to put the document on a network or a network available drive, a storage device that's available to many people on what is often a business network. And over many years that has worked as a very good approach to sharing presentations. But this more recently has evolved into something else altogether, and this is the ability to have what is probably the widest network of all, which is the cloud, which is the ability to store a presentation somewhere that you can access from almost anywhere in the world, and in addition to being able to access it from just about anywhere, to have a very wide choice of devices that you can use to access it from. So let's suppose that you're using a conventional laptop to work on a presentation and you want to share the development of that presentation with one of your colleagues who's perhaps on the other side of the world to you. You might want them to be able to work on it using, say, a tablet device, or maybe you want them to work on it without having an installed copy of PowerPoint, for example, on the PC that they're using. This is really where the cloud comes in general terms, and in the context of Microsoft and Office it's where Skydrive comes in. Now, I must emphasize here that Skydrive is just one approach to the use of the cloud, but in terms of Microsoft Office 2013 in general, I believe it's the most convenient and the most seamless approach. And as you'll see hopefully in this section, using the cloud as a way of sharing a document gives you both good control and very flexible facilities for working on a document with your colleagues and to making it available under your own control. Now, the key to this is having a Microsoft account. If you had an old Hotmail account, or maybe still have an old Hotmail account, or you have a Live account, Microsoft Live, live.com, live.co.uk, whatever it might be, then either of those basically gives you a Microsoft account. So let's start with the Microsoft account. You're going to need a Microsoft account to do this. If you don't have one already, you're going to need to sign up for one. There's plenty of information on Microsoft.com about how to do this. I'm only going to say the next thing once. I'm not responsible for Microsoft changing things. At the moment, these accounts are free, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what comes with those accounts being free. But if they change this between the time that I'm recording this and the time that you're following this course, I'm sorry, but I'm not really responsible for that. So at the moment, Microsoft accounts are free. I've had a Microsoft account for many years. They've never started charging me for it. I don't believe they're going to start doing that now, but you are going to need a Microsoft account. So if you haven't got one, check it out on Microsoft.com and get yourself a Microsoft account. Now once you've got the account, or if you've already got an account, you need to log into live.com. So I'm just going to log in with my Microsoft account. Click on sign in. By the way, if you go to live.com, there is a link down here, don't have a Microsoft account, sign up now. So you'd actually get your Microsoft account from there. But I'm going to click on sign in. Now once you've logged in, one of the options available to you will be Skydrive. So click on Skydrive. Now if you've never used Skydrive before, or you've never accessed files on the cloud before, you may wonder what on earth Skydrive is. Well, think of it as a storage folder. Just think of it as a folder on your computer, and in that folder you can put files, and in that folder you can create other folders. So in the case of my Skydrive, I've currently got 3 folders. I've got a documents folder, pictures folder, and a public folder, and each of those has got some files in it. In fact, documents has got 1 file, pictures has got 4, public hasn't got any at the moment. What I can do is to use those folders, or in fact the top level, which is currently empty apart from those 3 folders, to store a presentation. And then what I can do is to send a link to that to one of my colleagues who's working on the presentation with me. Now, generally speaking, these files are not accessible to the general public. So although I can easily see what's in my Skydrive, the general public can't, and I have to give people specific permission to even look at these files, and even more specific permission to make changes to them. But if I say saved the presentation I'm working on to my Skydrive and sent somebody else the right link and gave them the right permissions, then what they're going to be able to do is to open that presentation from their computer and make changes to that presentation. And that's really what we're going to look at in the rest of this section. That is, I'm going to save a PowerPoint presentation to this Skydrive, and then I'm going to give somebody else access to that presentation so that they can go in and work on it as well. Now, just before we do what I just described, I've got one other thing to point out about Skydrive. You may well want to take a little tour of Skydrive and find out how to use it a little bit more extensively yourself. But at the time of writing, when you get a Microsoft account, you're entitled to 7 GB of space on Skydrive for free. If you look on the left here, there's a little note there saying I've got 6.99 GB available. So obviously the storage space I'm using is not very much at the moment. Microsoft may well change the amount that's free, of course, at any time, but there are also paid plans if you need more than 7 GB. So all that I'm going to do here now is to create a folder for my presentation. So I click on the Create drop down here, say create folder. Note that I could create a PowerPoint presentation here if I wanted to, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, but for now I'm going to create a folder. The new folder is going to be called Parliament, and it's empty at the moment, that folder, but it won't be for long. So when I've finished doing that, I can sign out of Skydrive, and then I'll go back to PowerPoint. So now I'm back in PowerPoint, and I'm going to save this presentation to Skydrive. So I go into Backstage View, go to Save As. Now if you already have Skydrive set up in PowerPoint, you'll have an entry like this at the top, in my case Toby Arnott Skydrive. If you don't have that, then provided you've already set up Skydrive via your Microsoft account, in order to set this up, or the equivalent of this up in PowerPoint, click on Add a Place, and one of the options in Add a Place is Skydrive. Just mention in passing here Office 365 SharePoint. If you're a subscriber to Office 365, this is how you would actually set up a linkage there. That's outside the scope of this course, so I'm just going to stick with Skydrive. So select Skydrive, and now what happens, it says sign in to Office. Now if you click on sign in here and then put in the details of the Microsoft account that you may just have created, that will make a connection into Skydrive, and then you'll have the equivalent of Tobiana Skydrive listed when you do save as. Now obviously I'm not going to go through that for my account because it's already done, but that's basically where you need to go and what you need to do. So sign into your new Microsoft account and you'll finish up with the linkage through there to your Skydrive. I'm going to close that now and go back to use my Skydrive. So select Skydrive, then click on Browse, and as you can see, I've accessed what I'll call the top level in my Skydrive. You can see the 3 folders that were there when we first got to my Skydrive a little while ago, and you can also see the new folder that's there, Parliament Presentation. So I just treat this now exactly as though it was a storage folder on my PC. Go into the Parliament Presentation folder and just click on Save. And now that presentation is saved to Skydrive. So when I'm running my copy of PowerPoint 2013 on my PC, I can open that copy of this presentation on Skydrive whenever I have a connection to the internet. But the other important aspect of this is that independently of my installation of PowerPoint 2013 on the PC I'm using here, I can go to any browser and look at this presentation on Skydrive without using PowerPoint 2013, and that's what we're going to look at in the next section. So please join me for that.